Hey guys, what's up? This is Pants Our Dragon, and today we'll be doing an in-depth analysis on the new reworked ability power items and seeing if they're buffs or nerfs. But if you don't really care about the analysis and all you care is about the testing of the new RYLAI'S Crystal Scepter on the PvE server, click this annotation right here to skip ahead to that and see what you can do with this new RYLAI'S Crystal Scepter, and just showing you how powerful this item can be on certain champions, and these champions are probably something you should be looking out for in the next patch. Anyways, with all that being said, let's get started. Okay, so in general, all these ability power items are actually getting a buff, and I'm just going to explain why they're kind of getting a buff. Okay, so first off is going to be the needlessly large rod. The gold is going down by 350, and the ability power is going down by 20. But if you think of it this way, where an amplifying tome costs 435 gold, it's actually a buff, and also you don't have to wait until 1600 gold to get this item. Like sometimes you might be, waiting longer in lane to get the amount of gold just to get this item, so it doesn't take as long to get this item now. So it's going to be a buff here. Next up is going to be the RABADON'S death cap. So gold is going up, recipes being changed a bit, and the ability power bonus is going up by 5%. So it kind of looks like a nerf if you get it too early. And so it'd be a bad idea to say maybe get it at like 200 AP, you want to get it around 400 AP. And since it does cost a little bit more, it's going to take a bit longer just to get the death cap. And so some people will shy away from this item for a little bit until, they get their other items. So I'm just thinking something like maybe a mid-laner would go Doran's Ring, Morellonomicon, LUDEN'S Echo, and then RABADON'S death cap, which people have already been doing. Maybe they might get another item before getting a death cap, but that's just my theory. Overall, I wouldn't say it's a nerf or a buff, I'd say it's kind of in between. Like early game weaker, but late game it's more powerful. Next up is going to be the ZHONYA'S Hourglass, and right here, same concept as needlessly large rod. It's going to be cheaper by 300 gold, and ability power goes down by 20, but amplifying tome gives you 20 AP, and it costs 435 gold, so it's a buff. And also you have to take note that since this item is cheaper, and say this item is core on you, you're going to get your power spike a bit quicker. So it's actually a pretty big buff. Next up is going to be the Void Staff, and right here, as you can see, it costs more, and the ability power is increased by 10. So in my opinion, this is a nerf just because it only gives 10 more AP. I mean, you could say Amplifying Tome does cost 435 gold and you're getting like 218 gold worth of stats. But the thing is, since they're increasing the cost of it, you're going to be delayed on getting your Void Staff. And the passive on it is really good, so mages are going to be delayed that magic penetration for a little bit, and I can honestly see them kind of avoiding this item unless necessary, because a lot of people would rush it in some cases. And next up is going to be the Rod of Ages. So as you can see, base health and mana are going to be going down, so it's not going to be as powerful in lane. It's a bit cheaper, but it's only 100 gold, and the health growth stat is unchanged, but your mana growth and ability power have been increased. So what can I say about this item? Well, I do feel like it's more of a late game item, after you get those 10 minutes worth of stacks on it. And basically what you're exchanging is 150 health for 150 more mana, plus 20 ability power and 100 less gold. So you're getting more stats out of this item, which is good. It's just a little less powerful when you first get this item. You gotta wait a bit. But yeah, I think Ryze will be really happy with this buff. Next is going to be LIANDRY'S Torment, and this is getting a huge buff, as you can see. So for 100 more gold, you're going to get 30 more ability power. Holy fuck. So definitely LIANDRY Torment users are going to be really happy about this. There are some champions who are really good users of LIANDRY'S Torment's passive, but just would prefer, more ability power. But now with this buff, I can see a lot more people getting this item. For instance, I could see Lissandra getting this item now, although maybe after ZHONYA'S because, she needs that core item on her. Maybe AP mid Karma, I don't know, it's probably just going to be more worth it to buy on those like AP bruisers who buy it already now, but I could see it appearing on other champions. Overall, damn, this item looks pretty scary on champions like Amumu, Brand, Vel'Koz, people who use it. So I'm pretty interested on those champions who use this already and see how it plays out on them. Next up is going to be LUDEN'S Echo, and you're getting the passive faster since it's cheaper, so it is going to be a buff. And ability power is going down by 20, but Amplifying Tome costs, 435 gold, and I think you understand what I'm trying to say at this point. And the movement speed is going up by 3%, that's actually a lot. It's going to make the mages who use this more harder to kill since, they can kite the enemies harder, so it looks like a pretty decent buff to me. Next is going to be the NASHOR'S Tooth, and right here it costs 80 gold more, and you get 10% less attack speed, but you get 20 more ability power. So dagger costs 450 gold and gives you 15% attack speed, and you know how much an amplifying tome costs, so it's worth it basically. Although I am surprised in comparison with like other items, I feel like this should be buffed a bit more. But in terms of just the item itself, I can see it being better because, you know, most champions like Kayle and Diana would scale more with ability power than the attack speed. Diana for sure would like this buff, but I feel like she should still get other items, like the ZHONYA'S Hourglass and Abyssal Scepter. Next up is going to be Will of the Ancients, and this item is getting an interesting change. And now as you can see, your abilities heal you for 15% of the damage dealt, which is calculated before resistances. So Vlad buffs right here, since I think he's like the only champion who uses this. And I think the only way this is a nerf is if the enemy is reducing your damage by 25%. So this is only good when the enemy has 32 or more magic resist, and assuming you have 0 magic penetration at that time. Because 32 magic resist does reduce magic damage by 25%. Do you note that you'll probably restore less hit point off creeps since they do have 0 magic resist. Next up, let's talk about the Archangel's staff, and right here, the cost is increased by 300 gold, a recipe change, and the ability power is increased by 20. Overall, I do think it's a nerf because you're delaying getting this item for 300 gold, so like getting it is going to take a bit longer, but once you do get it, it's more worth it than the old Archangels. And that's about it. Next up, let's talk about the RYLAI'S Crystal Scepter. So big changes coming here, and this item looks super good right now. And let's go over it a bit. So the cost of it goes up by 100, okay, and then the recipe changes a bit, and finally some interesting changes are happening to the slow. And single target slows are going up by 5%. And here's the biggest change where a lot of people will now consider using this item. The area effect slow is now 40% instead of 15%. I've been doing a lot of testing with this item on the PvE and seeing which champions skills are considered 40% or multi-damage or damage over time. And there are some interesting results that I came across. Because there are some skills which you would think would consider damage over time or multi-hit slow, but are actually the area of effect slow, causing the 40% instead of, you know, the damage over time or multi-hit slow, which is 20%. And also vice versa, where you would think it's an area of effect slow, but it's actually a damage over time or multi-hit slow, causing the 20%. For instance, all Fiddlesticks's abilities are actually 20%. Even his E only causes 20% for some reason. Rumble's Q is also 20%. The same goes for Amumu's W and Karthus's E. But at least for Karthus, when it does hit 2 or more targets, is actually a 40% slow. And then Heimerdinger's turrets do cause a 20% slow. And it makes sense because these are all damage over time or multi-hitting abilities, right? They hit their enemies more than once. And then so I thought I understood how this item works with certain abilities. But apparently some champions just think this rule is stupid and apply the 40% slow. And here are just some champions who I'd feel like it'd be really powerful on when this item comes live. Do note that some of the bots might have merc treads. And here are these two champions which apply the 40% slow with their ultimates, which I do think it's a bug, but I'm not sure.